Hello and welcome to the program. I am DEJI360. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has concluded his state visit to China. And of course, people are talking about the trip, with quite a number of analysts describing it as the best of the so many foreign trips the president has embarked on since he was elected president last May. Now, the reason people are actually hailing this trip is because of some of the landmark agreements the president signed with the government of the People's Republic of China, with Nigeria's economy taking a battering as a result of the sustained fall in the price of oil, which is the country's main revenue earner. Economic experts say the deals the president brought back from China, if implemented to the latter, will help the country overcome its current economic challenges. Of course, as you all know by now, quite a number of deals were signed, but let's narrow the discourse to one particular deal, which is what has been called the currency swap deal. Now, most analysts are describing the deal as a bold attempt by the Nigerian government to strengthen the naira, which has come under enormous pressure from the dollar. What the currency swap deal means is that the Chinese currency, that's the yuan, is free to flow among different banks in Nigeria and has been included in the foreign exchange reserves of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's central bank has also said it plans to diversify its foreign exchange reserves away from the dollar by switching a stockpile into yuan. It converted up to a tenth of its reserves into yuan some 5 years ago. Now, the latest agreement will make it easier to settle trade deals between both countries in the yuan. China has signed similar currency swap deals with countries ranging from Kazakhstan to Argentina as it promotes wider use of its yuan. All right, I'm now being joined on the program to talk more about President Buhari's visit to China and all the agreements that were signed there by investment banker and, of course, the managing director of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, an investment bank based in Lagos, Johnson Chukwu. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. What would be your key takeaway from this visit? Because, I mean, I've heard people say this would appear to be the best foreign trip President Buhari has embarked on. He's embarked on several, but that this would appear to be the best in terms of what Nigeria is getting from this trip.
Yes, if you ask me, I think I will agree with those who are saying this must be one of the best trips he has made so far. We are seeing a lot of take-home from this visit. We've seen the Chinese government giving us an intent to provide funding of up to $6 billion to Nigeria to support agriculture, infrastructure. And then we've also seen the Chinese government indicating that, look, they've already set aside another $15 million to support agriculture. We have signed a currency swap with ICBC to imply that, look, Nigerians cannot do that, and I would believe.
Exactly, because I really want you to to educate us more about this currency swap. What exactly does it mean for Nigeria, and what does it mean for the ordinary man on the street?
Well, we have to break it to what it means to the ordinary man on the street. It simply means that Nigerian entities that import goods from China can now establish letters of credit in ringgit, that is in Chinese currency, in yuan. And then Nigerian banks can also establish letters of credit in yuan, and therefore bypass the third currency burden of first buying dollars and then converting dollars to yuan.
That's something massive, because, I mean, the bulk of our import actually comes from China.
Yes, if you look at it, China accounts for about 22% of Nigeria's imports. If you cast your mind back to last 2014, Nigeria's import from China was about $10 billion. So if you take out 22% of the current burden, then we are going to see some level of relief or respite to the dollar in the meantime. Granted that for the currency swap, it has to be settled in the future. But ultimately, by the time the future comes, probably Nigeria would have recovered, and maybe Nigeria would have built back the reserves. So, but the most important, we have severe liquidity challenge today in terms of foreign currency assets. And this currency swap will relieve the country of the burden of meeting dollar obligations for every import. So imports going through China can now be easily facilitated through the Chinese currency. Recall also that the 10% of Nigerian reserve in 2011 was played by the central bank governor in the Chinese currency.
So basically now, what we used to have before now and probably till now until this agreement actually take root is that you want to buy anything in China, you have to go through, you have to transact that business in the dollar.
Yes, absolutely. What was happening was, until this agreement was signed, every importation from China will be, the pro forma invoice will come in dollar. So the Nigerian importer will open letter of credit in dollar. Or even if the pro forma invoice is in yuan, it has to be converted back to dollar. So all transactions, you call the Chinese currency third currency, because you have to first convert to dollar and then convert to yuan.
And of course, no doubt, that would increase the demand for dollar, that surely.
Absolutely. They meant that at that point, all imports, irrespective of where you came from, had a dollar component, because the settlement was still done in dollars. But now, with the currency swap, which does not, at the meantime, in the interim, does not compel Nigeria to buy dollar to satisfy the currency obligation to Chinese exporters, then it then means that that pressure, that 22% of import that is channeled towards it's coming from China, we no longer need to go through dollar settlement, and that would, like I said, reduce the pressure to the tune of, call it an average of 20%.
I mean, we also saw that agreement, before President Buhari went, the talk was that we were going to get like a $2 billion loan from the Chinese government. But, after all the agreement was signed, now we're being told that the Chinese government has decided to place a $6 billion facility, infrastructure loan for us to use. I mean, can you talk more about that?
Well, I think what happened was our expectation was they exceeded. The government went with the expectation that they would get access to $2 billion. What the Chinese government had done is what you may call an offer in principle. They are saying that, look, if you have the appropriate transactions, then we can give you as much as $6 billion. So it now behaves for us as a country to come back and define the infrastructural assets that we need to use to access this funding. And those, of course, there will be conditions to accessing the funds, part of which will be that if it's coming from the export bank, then there must be some export component. Or the contract may need to be given to a Chinese company. But the key thing is that we have access to $6 billion, which you can invest in transport infrastructure, such as rail lines, the airports, key highways, provided we meet the conditions for accessing those funds. And for me, I think there is actually the duty. It's now an internal thing for the government to make sure that we come up with those projects that meet the funding requirement for the $6 billion.
In all, let's look at the relations between China and Nigeria. You've said it at a different occasion that we still need to work on that trade imbalance between Nigeria and China. I mean, we see a lot of imports from China coming, but we do not see a corresponding number of exports from Nigeria go to China, right?
Well, if you look at the trade between the two countries, you'll realize, like I mentioned earlier, China is the largest import market for the country, because 22% of our imports come from China. But on the reverse side of it, we only export 1.6% of goods, only 1.6% of our export go to China.
And what's responsible for that?
Well, one is this, that we currently do not have several export commodities that meet international global market standards. The second factor is that China has not focused so much attention on importing Nigerian crude. And I think one of the things that the president should extract from the Chinese government is that since China is still a relatively planned economy, that the Chinese government should encourage importation of Nigerian crude. Because for now, the crude is our major export. Over time, we need to diversify the economy to the point we can export several other products to China, to the Chinese government. The second aspect of it is what the president said towards the end of his visit, that the Chinese businessmen and Nigerian business partners should work towards bringing Chinese manufacturers to the country to set up manufacturing outfit, because we have a huge population, 180 million population, the largest population in Africa, that we should not just, it should not be just an export, Nigeria should not just be an export market for China. Chinese companies should also consider setting up outfits to manufacture the product exported in the country. On the government side, I think what they need to do is create the enabling environment and create an incentive scheme that will attract, will make it compelling for companies that actually ship a large portion of their export to the country to rather set up production activities here by improving the ease of doing business, improving the competitiveness of the economy, improving key critical infrastructure, the power supply, transport infrastructure, and what have you.
All right, Mr. Johnson Chugu, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thank you very much for your contributions.
My pleasure.
Now, still on President Buhari's trip to China, I earlier spoke with another financial analyst who followed the trip closely and dissected the agreements. I began by asking him what he makes of the deal.
I've always been a proponent of devaluation. But over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, government has come up with a lot of argument. They've explained why, they don't see devaluation as a way of resolving the problems in the economy. And, why would anybody devalue, or why would the government devalue its currency? One, it wants to support local production. Two, it wants to aid export. And government has reasoned that, one, how many things does Nigeria export? How empowered are the local business community to increase production, in the face of very high interest rates. So all of that will not immediately aid local production. When we are not producing anything locally, there's nothing to export. So it is in the opinion of government that if they devalue now, it will not meet the objective to the common man. Rather, we are going to see the worst. Every policy of government will have advantages and disadvantages. So as we are supporting devaluation, it has advantages. It also has some disadvantages that we also need to look at the same time. So government thinks that if they go ahead and devalue, given the current economic situation of the country, what the common man will see immediately is the worst part of the devaluation of the currency as against the advantages that some of us proponents of devaluation are saying. So what has government done? They started thinking and became very smart. One, the issue is the escalating rates of naira to dollar. There's too much pressure on naira, and there's too much demand for dollar. Yeah. And there has been a lot of accusations. FDIs are holding the currency. And people are putting it somewhere, corruption around it. So how much effort is government going to put on the table for all of these things to subside? Or how many people is going to fight in different kinds of the sectors to be able to bring this problem to a head? Now, what did they do? They decided to diversify. And the recent trip of the president to China has really, proven, as facts are emerging from agreements that have been signed, as the best trip the president has made since he became president. So what that would do immediately is to reduce pressure on dollar-denominated transactions. So there is another outlet for Nigerians who also want to trade internationally to convert, currency.
Just how significant do you think that policy or agreement is, and what impact could it have, on the common man, the common man on the street in Nigeria?
It's the best thing, it's the best agreement that any Nigerian government has signed in recent years. It's the best. Look at our history with the Western countries. Anytime there's going to be any kind of incentive, it comes with conditions that are difficult to meet. Conditions like austerity, conditions like direct devaluation. In the end, whether it is by the content of the agreement that we sign or it is in interpretation, still the common man does not benefit from any kind of agreements that have been signed between Nigeria and the Western countries or the West in recent years. But this, even before we get to implementation of the agreements, I can see from here that there are a lot of benefits that the common man will see directly. One, today, the kind of relationship we have with China is a lot more valuable to the common man than all the agreements and the relationship that we built over the years with the West. And Nigerian businessmen go to China a lot more than they go to US, UK for business. In fact, they go to Dubai a lot more than they go to US, UK for business. When we go to US or UK, we go for holidays. We bring things here. Two, you will notice that even though there is what you consider, what you can call a serious imbalance in the trade relationship between Nigeria and China, but there's still a major tendency of Nigerians wanting to import from China, and even the Chinese government and its people wanting to, import from Nigeria to China. That's one. Two, China has also over the years been exporting their culture to Nigeria. You have Chinese village everywhere where you can buy Chinese products immediately. Three, the agreement we signed with China is about the first of its kind in Africa. So it is going to make Nigeria the clearinghouse of all Chinese currency denominated transaction in Africa. Now, that is a lot of benefits to Nigeria. It's not only going to attract or smoothen or improve business relationship between Nigeria and China, it's also going to encourage other African countries that will want to toe that line in the future to first learn from the example Nigeria has laid. So, for me, it is the biggest thing that has happened to our economy since the current APC government took office. It is the biggest thing that has happened to our economy in so many years of democracy. What it means is that we have created a platform for competition. Now, the West will now begin to decide whether they want to do business with us to the advantage of our government and our people, or they just want to make money. Because we have a platform that can do 70% of those trades anyway.
So are we going to see a situation where Nigerian businessmen who travel to China or import things from China now will begin to trade with China in the yuan and not the dollar?
Absolutely, because really it's never made sense. It doesn't seem make sense. Why would you do 70% of your business with A and be settling in the currency of B that does 30% or less? Maybe it's part of things that are causing the imbalance. Especially when the Chinese currency is also internationally convertible. So and we have countries in the Middle East, Argentina, Kazakhstan, mention them, that have also signed similar agreements and are doing business. It means that the currency is internationally convertible and accepted everywhere. So why would we now be settling the businesses we do with China in dollars? So for me, it makes perfect sense for the Nigerian business community. It makes perfect sense for even China itself. Because, hey, Nigeria is also a big place for China to play. We have the population on our side. We have the capacity to spend. The purchasing capacity is there. Nigerian businessmen are adventurous. So it's something that will be mutually beneficial to both countries.
And obviously with the CBN keeping some of its reserves, I'm talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria now, keeping some of its reserves in the yuan, I mean, that will surely facilitate things for Nigerian businessmen who do business with China, right?
It makes absolute sense. The agreement, of course, for it to work well, they have to put it in FXR for exchange reserve. So it also bring about diversification of the holding of CBN. Then it allows banks, Nigerian banks, to issue letters of credit to also be able to do transactions in yuan. So for me, it's the best that the government has done to to the common man. It's the best that the government has done. Look at it. Even besides this agreement between Nigerian government and Chinese government, Nigerian businessmen are also signing agreements. Part of the agreement is that Dangote has signed like 2 billion agreement for the China bank to fund some of his projects in Nigeria. So it opens windows like that for Nigerian businesses. 2, funds from China are going to be covered at a cheaper rate.
Far cheaper.
It's far cheaper compared to what they would have been getting from the West. So it is today, as far as this agreement is concerned, and the way the world order is going, China appears to be the best business partner Nigeria can have at this point in time.
Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come, we'll turn attention to something else. The number of herdsmen attacks in Nigeria is growing by the day. As a matter of fact, it's outstripping the number of attacks carried out by Boko Haram. We'll be finding out why. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.